The galaxy was vast, endless, and full of mysteries. Countless civilizations had risen and fallen over millions of years, each leaving behind its mark on the universe. Among these civilizations was one known as the Zorathian Empire. The Zorathians were not like humans. They were insectoid creatures with shiny black exoskeletons that glinted under starlight. Their eyes were large, multifaceted, and cold, devoid of any emotion except for hunger. Hunger for power, resources, and domination. For centuries they had conquered planet after planet, enslaving weaker species and stripping their worlds bare. No one dared to stand against them because no one could. But this time the Zorathians had set their sights on a small blue planet called Earth. It wasn't much to look at from space, just another speck among billions, but it held something: valuable water, minerals, and most importantly, life. The Zorathians didn't care about humanity itself. They saw humans as nothing more than ants scurrying around aimlessly. What they cared about was what Earth could give them: resources to fuel their ever-expanding empire. So, without hesitation, the Zorathian fleet prepared to invade. Massive ships shaped like jagged claws tore through the void of space, heading straight toward the unsuspecting world below. As the alien armada approached Earth, however, strange things began to happen. At first, it was subtle, a faint shimmer in the atmosphere, almost like heat waves rising off hot pavement. Then came the energy readings. The Zorathians' advanced sensors picked up fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field, something they had never encountered before. Normally, planets like Earth emitted predictable patterns, but this was different. It felt alive, pulsating with an energy that defied explanation. The Zorathian commanders exchanged nervous clicks and chirps, their version of speech. They tried to dismiss it as interference or perhaps some primitive technology humans had developed by accident. But deep down, even they couldn't ignore the unease creeping into their minds. Back on Earth, people went about their daily lives completely unaware of the danger looming above them. In bustling cities, cars honked, children played in parks, and office workers sipped coffee while staring at computer screens. Farmers tended to their fields under the warm sun, and fishermen cast their nets into calm seas. Life was ordinary, peaceful even. Yet beneath the surface, humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Hidden away in underground bunkers, underwater facilities, and remote deserts, scientists and engineers had worked tirelessly to create a defense system unlike anything the world had ever seen. Governments had secretly pooled resources, setting aside petty squabbles to focus on one goal: protecting Earth from extraterrestrial threats. These preparations had started during the Cold War, when fears of nuclear annihilation led nations to consider other dangers lurking beyond the stars. At first, the project was small, an experimental satellite here, a prototype weapon there. But over time, it grew. Breakthroughs in artificial intelligence allowed machines to learn faster than humans ever could. Advances in materials science produced alloys lighter than aluminum yet stronger than steel. And breakthroughs in energy production gave humanity access to power sources that rivaled those of advanced alien civilizations. All of this culminated in the creation of Earth's ultimate safeguard, the Star Destroyer program. The Star Destroyers themselves were marvels of engineering. Each ship stretched several miles long, its sleek design resembling a cross between a shark and a futuristic skyscraper. Their hulls gleamed silver, reflecting sunlight like mirrors. Along their sides were rows upon rows of weapons, lasers capable of cutting through metal, plasma cannons that could vaporize entire armies, and missile launchers stocked with payloads designed to obliterate asteroids. Inside, the ships were controlled by AI systems so advanced they could think and react faster than any human crew. These machines were programmed to protect Earth at all costs, making decisions based on logic rather than fear. For years, the existence of the Star Destroyers remained a closely guarded secret. Only a handful of people knew about them: top government, officials, military leaders, and key scientists involved in the program. Even astronauts orbiting Earth and space stations had no idea what lay hidden beneath their feet. The ships were kept in specially constructed hangars buried deep within mountains, submerged under oceans or camouflaged in barren wastelands. They waited patiently, silent sentinels ready to spring into action if needed. Humanity hoped they would never have to use them. But now, as the Zorathian fleet drew closer, the moment of truth had arrived. On board the lead alien vessel, Commander Vraxic stared at the viewscreen, his mandibles twitching nervously. He had led countless invasions, before conquering dozens of worlds without resistance. This should have been no different. Yet something about Earth felt wrong. The energy readings continued to fluctuate wildly, growing stronger with each passing second. Vraxic ordered his technicians to run diagnostics, but none of their equipment could explain what was happening. Could it be a trap? He wondered, aloud, though he quickly dismissed the thought. Humans were primitives, incapable of posing a real threat. Still, the uncertainty gnawed at him. Meanwhile, on Earth, alarms began to blare in secret command centers around the globe. Scientists monitoring the situation watched in awe as the data streamed in. The energy signatures emanating from Earth's atmosphere were unlike anything they had seen before. It was as if the planet itself was waking up, responding to the presence of the invaders. One scientist, Dr. Maria Chen, leaned forward in her chair, her heart pounding with excitement and dread. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "The moment we've been preparing for." She turned to her colleagues, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega was the activation sequence for the Star Destroyers. With a single command, hidden doors slid open across the planet, revealing the massive ships concealed within. In mountain ranges, rocky facades crumbled away, exposing gleaming hulls that rose into the sky. Beneath ocean waves, water parted as titanic vessels emerged, sending tidal waves crashing against distant shores. In deserts, sand blew away to reveal platforms lifting the destroyers high into the air. People nearby looked up in shock, unsure whether to run or stare in wonder. Above them, the clouds began to part dramatically, as though the heavens themselves were opening to unveil Earth's true strength. The Zorathians watched in stunned silence as the Star Destroyers took position above Earth. Their ships, once dwarfing everything in sight, suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the sheer size and majesty of the human fleet. Panic spread through the alien ranks as they realized they were outmatched. Back on Earth, ordinary citizens gathered outside, pointing at the sky where flashes of light illuminated the horizon. Some fell to their knees in prayer, others cheered, loudly, waving flags and chanting slogans. Everyone, regardless of nationality or background, felt a shared sense of pride swelling in their chests. Humanity wasn't just defending itself, it was proving its worth on a galactic scale. Commander Vraxic clenched his claws tightly, his mind racing. He had two options: retreat or fight. Retreat meant admitting defeat, something no Zorathian commander had done in centuries. Fight meant risking everything, including the lives of his crew and the future of his empire. After a long pause, he made his decision. "Prepare for battle," he ordered, his voice trembling slightly. "We will show these primitives the might of the Zorathian Empire." His subordinates scrambled to obey, firing up engines and arming weapons. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, one that would change the course of history forever. And so, as the skies above Earth filled with the ominous hum of alien engines and the glow of human star destroyers, the galaxy held its breath. Two vastly different species stood on the brink of war, each driven by instincts honed over millennia. For the Zorathians, it was conquest and survival. For humanity, it was protection and defiance. Neither side knew what the outcome would be. But one thing was certain: when Earth's sky parts, it reveals not weakness but unstoppable strength. The tension in space was palpable as the two fleets faced each other. On one side were the Zorathians, their jagged ships bristling with weapons and glowing ominously under the dim light of distant stars. On the other side floated humanity's star destroyers, massive, sleek, and silent like predators waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The humans had revealed their secret arsenal, but they hadn't made the first move yet. They were letting the invaders come to them, forcing the Zorathians to act out of fear and uncertainty. Commander Vraxic clicked his mandibles furiously, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. His ship's sensors painted a grim picture. The human fleet outnumbered his own, and their firepower was far superior. Every reading suggested that these ships were not just advanced, they were decades ahead of anything the Zorathians possessed. Yet Vraxic refused to believe it. How could primitives from a backwater planet develop such technology? It had to be stolen, borrowed, or reverse-engineered from another civilization. There was no way humans could have done this on their own. Still, disbelief wouldn't save him now. He had to act. "Launch the first wave," Vraxic ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. Dozens of smaller fighter ships detached from the mothership, zipping through space toward the human fleet. Their engines left trails of blue fire behind them, and their cannons glowed as they charged for attack. Back on the human command ship, Captain Elena Reyes watched calmly as the enemy moved into position. She stood tall in the center of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, officers worked silently at their stations, monitoring data streams and preparing weapon systems. Despite the chaos about to unfold, there was an eerie calm in the room. "Ma'am, the Zorathians are deploying fighters," reported Lieutenant Carter, a young officer seated at the tactical console. His voice betrayed a hint of nervousness, but he kept his eyes glued to the screen. "Let them come," Reyes replied coolly, her gaze fixed on the view screen. "We've trained for this." Reyes knew the importance of timing. Humanity's star. Destroyers were powerful, but they weren't invincible. If the Zorathians managed to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, things could get messy. That's why she had instructed her crew to hold their fire until the enemy was within range. It was a calculated risk, but one she believed would pay off. As the alien fighters approached, the human ships remained still, almost serene. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like the humans were frozen with fear, but Reyes and her team were simply biding their time. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. The Zorathian fighters opened fire, unleashing torrents of plasma bolts that streaked across space like deadly comets. The beams struck the hulls of the Star Destroyers, creating flashes of light and sending shockwaves rippling through the vacuum. For a moment, it looked like the aliens had scored a direct hit. Sparks erupted along the surface of one destroyer, and alarms blared inside its command center. But then something incredible happened. The damage repaired itself almost instantly. Backup systems kicked in, sealing breaches and rerouting power to critical areas. The ship didn't even flinch. "What? What is this?" Vraxic stammered, staring at his monitors in disbelief. His fighters continued firing, but their attacks seemed futile against the self-healing hulls of the human vessels. It was as if they were punching walls made of steel without leaving a scratch. On board the lead destroyer, Reyes finally gave the order everyone had been waiting for. "Engage," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. In an instant, the human fleet sprang to life. Bright beams of energy shot out from the destroyer's cannons, slicing through space with terrifying precision. The Zorathian fighters never stood a chance. One by one, they exploded in brilliant bursts of flame, their wreckage drifting aimlessly through the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge of the lead destroyer as the crew watched their enemies fall. But Reyes remained focused, her expression unchanged. This was only the beginning. Down on Earth, people gathered in streets, parks, and rooftops, staring up at the sky where flashes of light illuminated the horizon. News networks broadcast live footage of the battle, showing the massive Star Destroyers exchanging fire with the alien fleet. Social media exploded with posts as millions of people shared their reactions. Some prayed fervently, hoping for humanity's victory. Others cheered loudly, waving flags and chanting slogans. Children pointed excitedly at the sky, while parents hugged them tightly, unsure whether to feel pride or fear. Among the crowd was a man named David Thompson, a retired engineer who had once worked on the Star Destroyer project. He stood in his backyard, gazing up at the heavens with tears streaming down his face. For years he had kept the secret, unable to tell even his closest friends or family about the work he had done. Now, As he watched the ships he helped build, defend Earth, he felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, and a deep sense of responsibility. "We did it," he whispered to himself, his voice trembling. Nearby, his grandson tugged at his sleeve, asking what was happening. David knelt down and smiled. "Those are our ships, buddy. They're protecting us." Back in space, the battle raged on. The initial wave of Zorathian fighters had been obliterated, but more ships were already moving into position. This time, it wasn't just small fighters. It was the larger capital ships armed with devastating weapons capable of leveling entire cities. Vraxic gritted his teeth as he issued new orders. "Focus all firepower on the lead destroyer," he shouted. "If we can take down their flagship, the rest will follow." The Zorathian fleet unleashed everything it had, targeting Reyes's ship with relentless fury. Plasma bolts, laser beams, and missiles converged on the vessel, lighting up the darkness of space. For a brief moment, it seemed like the aliens might succeed. Alarms blared inside the destroyer as multiple systems overloaded, and the crew scrambled to contain the damage. Reyes gripped the railing of the command deck, her knuckles white, but she refused to show any sign of weakness. "Reroute auxiliary power to shields," she commanded. "Divert all non-essential functions to weapon systems. We hold this line." Her orders were carried out swiftly. The destroyer's AI recalibrated its defenses, reinforcing the shield grid just in time to absorb another barrage of enemy fire. At the same time, the ship's cannons roared to life again, firing salvos of energy beams that tore through the Zorathian formation. Several alien ships erupted in flames, their crews screaming as they were consumed by explosions. The tide of the battle began to shift, but the Zorathians weren't ready to give up yet. Desperation fueled their actions as they launched a daring maneuver. A group of suicide drones broke away from the main fleet, heading straight for one of the human destroyers. These drones were small, fast, and packed with enough explosives to cripple even the most advanced ship. They darted between laser blasts, zigzagging unpredictably as they closed in on their target. Lieutenant Carter spotted the threat immediately. "Incoming drones, ma'am," he called out, his voice rising in panic. "They're too fast for our targeting systems." Reyes narrowed her eyes, her mind racing. "Activate swarm protocol," she ordered. Seconds later, hundreds of tiny drones emerged from the destroyer's hangar bay, spreading out like a cloud of metallic bees. These were Earth's countermeasures, miniature drones equipped with AI, capable of intercepting threats autonomously. The two swarms clashed in mid-space, creating a dazzling display of sparks and explosions. One by one, the Zorathian drones were destroyed, their mission thwarted. The human crew let out a collective sigh of relief, but Reyes knew better than to celebrate prematurely. There was still much work to be done. As the battle dragged on, the Zorathian fleet began to falter. Ship after ship fell victim to the overwhelming firepower of the human destroyers. Morale plummeted among the alien ranks, replaced by confusion and despair. Even Vraxic, who had always prided himself on his tactical genius, found himself questioning every decision he made. He had underestimated humanity, and now his empire was paying the price. "We need reinforcements," Vraxic barked, turning to his communications officer. "Contact the nearest outpost. Tell them to send backup immediately." "There's no response, Commander," the officer replied, his voice trembling. "Our signals are being jammed." Vraxic slammed his fist against the console, his frustration boiling over. "This cannot be happening," he muttered under his breath. "Not to us." Meanwhile, Reyes addressed her crew over the intercom. "Listen up, everyone," she said, her tone firm but reassuring. "We've got them on the ropes. Keep pushing. Stay focused and remember, we're fighting for Earth, for our homes, our families, and our future. Let's finish this." Her words ignited a renewed sense of determination among the crew. Officers worked faster, coordinating attacks with surgical precision. Pilots maneuvered their ships with unmatched skill, dodging enemy fire while delivering crippling blows. Slowly but surely, the balance tipped in humanity's favor. The Zorathian fleet was crumbling, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. By the time the dust settled, or rather, when the last remnants of the alien ships drifted away as debris, the outcome was clear. Humanity had won. The skies a bow. The battle had reached its climax. The Zorathian fleet was in disarray, their once mighty armada reduced to a scattering of damaged ships struggling to stay afloat. Fires burned on their hulls, and escape pods jettisoned into space as panicked crews abandoned ship. Yet despite their losses, the aliens refused to surrender. They were desperate now, willing to throw everything they had left into one final reckless assault. Commander Vraxic paced back and forth on the bridge of his flagship, his sharp claws clicking against the metal floor. His normally cold demeanor was cracking under the weight of defeat. Never in his long career had he faced such humiliation. The humans, primitive, insignificant humans, had outmatched him at every turn. Their star destroyers moved with precision, their weapons struck with devastating accuracy, and their AI systems anticipated his every move before he even made it. It was as if they weren't fighting mere mortals, but gods themselves. "We cannot retreat," Vraxic growled, turning to his officers. "If we do, the Empire will see us as cowards. We must fight until the end." His subordinates exchanged nervous glances. They knew what that meant. Death. But none dared challenge their commander. Instead, they nodded silently and returned to their stations, preparing for what would likely be their final stand. On board the lead human destroyer, Captain Elena Reyes watched the enemy regroup through the viewscreen. Her crew had fought valiantly, holding their ground against wave after wave of attacks. But she could see the determination in the Zorathians' movements. They weren't done yet. Reyes clenched her fists tightly, knowing this next phase of the battle would decide everything. "Lieutenant Carter," she called out, her voice calm but commanding. "What's their status?" Carter glanced at his console, his fingers flying over the controls. "Their main fleet is down to less than 20% operational capacity, but their flagship is still intact, ma'am, and they're charging some kind of weapon. It's big." Reyes frowned. She had expected nothing less from the Zorathians. Even in defeat, they were dangerous. Whatever weapon they were preparing could tip the scales back in their favor if they managed to fire it. She couldn't let that happen. "Target their flagship," Reyes ordered. "Divert all available power to our forward batteries. We take them out before they can use whatever they're planning." "Aye, Captain," Carter replied, relaying the order to the rest of the fleet. The human destroyers shifted formation, positioning themselves directly in front of the Zorathian flagship. Their cannons hummed with energy as they locked onto their target. Meanwhile, the alien vessel loomed larger on the viewscreen, its surface crackling with electricity as the mysterious weapon charged up. The tension in the air was suffocating. Back on Earth, people held their breath as news networks broadcast live updates of the battle. Scientists speculated about the nature of the Zorathians' weapon, while military analysts debated whether humanity's defenses could withstand another major attack. In living rooms, schools, and workplaces, conversations stopped as everyone tuned in to watch the unfolding drama. Families huddled together, praying for their protectors to succeed. Children clung to their parents, wide-eyed with fear and wonder. Humanity's fate hung by a thread, and no one knew how it would end. Among the crowd was Maria Chen, the scientist who had helped develop the Star Destroyer's AI systems. She sat alone in her lab, staring at a monitor displaying real-time data from the battle. Her heart raced as she analyzed the information coming in. The Zorathians' weapon was unlike anything she had encountered before. It seemed to draw energy from multiple sources, amplifying its destructive potential exponentially. If it fired, it could obliterate an entire destroyer in seconds. "No," Maria whispered, shaking her head. "They can't let it charge fully." She grabbed her phone and dialed the emergency line connecting her to the command center aboard the lead destroyer. After a few rings, Lieutenant Carter answered. "Dr. Chen?" Carter asked, recognizing her voice immediately. "What is it?" "I've analyzed their weapon," Maria said quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It's using a feedback loop to amplify its output. You need to disrupt the process before it reaches critical mass, otherwise you won't survive the blast." There was a pause on the other end. Then Rhea's voice came through, steady and resolute. "Understood, Doctor. Any suggestions?" Maria hesitated, her mind racing. Finally, she spoke. "Deploy your drones again. Focus them on the weapon's core. If you can disable it before it fires, you'll buy yourselves enough time to finish them off." "Thank you, Dr. Chen," Reyes said. "We'll make it work." As the call ended, Maria leaned back in her chair, her hands trembling. She had done all she could. Now, it was up to the crew to execute her plan. Back in space, Reyes issued new orders. Launch the drone swarm. Priority target, their weapon. System. Hundreds of tiny drones shot out from the hangar bays of the human destroyers, swarming toward the Zorathian flagship. The aliens responded with bursts of plasma fire, trying to shoot down the incoming threat. But the drones were too fast, too agile. They darted between shots, closing in on their objective. Within moments, they reached the glowing core of the alien weapon, latching onto it like parasites. Explosions erupted across the surface of the Zorathian flagship as the drones detonated, crippling the weapon before it could fire. Cheers erupted on the bridges of the human destroyers as the threat was neutralized. But Reyes didn't celebrate. She knew the fight wasn't over yet. "Fire everything we've got," she commanded. "Finish them." The human fleet unleashed a barrage of energy beams, missiles and plasma torpedoes converging on the Zorathian flagship. The alien vessel shuddered under the onslaught, its shields failing one by one. Inside, chaos reigned as explosions tore through corridors and decks collapsed. Commander Vraxic gripped the railing of his bridge, his mandibles twitching furiously as he watched his empire crumble around him. "This isn't possible," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring in the background. "How could they?" But there was no time for reflection. A massive explosion ripped through the flagship, engulfing the bridge in flames. Vraxic stumbled backward, his exoskeleton cracking under the heat. He fell to his knees, his vision fading as darkness consumed him. The last thing he saw was the triumphant glow of Earth's star destroyers in the distance. With the destruction of the flagship, the remaining Zorathian ships broke formation and fled. Some attempted to jump into hyperspace, only to be intercepted by human fighters. Others surrendered, broadcasting messages of peace and pleading for mercy. The battle was over. Humanity had emerged victorious. Down on Earth, celebrations erupted once more. People poured into the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans. Fireworks lit up the sky, and music played loudly as strangers embraced one another. Social media was flooded with posts expressing gratitude and pride. For the first time in history, humanity felt united, not just as nations or cultures, but as a single species standing together against a common threat. In New York City, David Thompson watched the festivities from his porch, his grandson asleep in his arms. Tears streamed down his face as he thought about the countless hours he had spent working on the Star Destroyers. All those late nights, missed birthdays, and sleepless weekends had led to this moment. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that his efforts had contributed to saving the world. Meanwhile, on board the lead destroyer, Captain Reyes addressed her crew. "Well done, everyone," she said, her voice filled with pride. "Today we proved that humanity is capable of greatness. We showed the universe that we are not to be underestimated." Her words were met with applause, but Reyes remained humble. She knew this victory came at a cost: the lives of brave men and women who had sacrificed everything to protect Earth. She vowed never to forget them. As the days passed, the galaxy began to take notice of Earth's triumph. News of the battle spread quickly, reaching civilizations both near and far. Some viewed humanity as heroes, others as potential allies, and a few as rivals. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer an insignificant planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere deep in space, survivors of the Zorathian fleet carried whispers of warning to anyone who would listen. Never underestimate the resolve of humankind. Because when Earth's sky parts, it reveals not weakness, but unstoppable strength. The aftermath of the battle left Earth's skies eerily quiet. The Zorathian fleet had been decimated, their once mighty armada reduced to drifting debris and burning wreckage scattered across the void. Survivors of the alien forces either fled into deep space or surrendered, broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy. Humanity had emerged victorious, but the cost of that victory was still being tallied. On board the lead destroyer, Captain Elena Reyes stood silently on the observation deck, gazing out at the remnants of the enemy fleet. Her reflection stared back at her through the glass, weary but resolute. She thought about the sacrifices made, the lives lost, the families torn apart, and wondered if it had all been worth it. Below her, Earth spun peacefully, its blue oceans and green continents glowing softly under the sunlight. It was hard to believe that just hours ago this fragile world had faced annihilation. Now it felt almost surreal. The planet was safe, for now, but Reyes knew this wasn't the end. The Zorathians were just one species among countless others in the galaxy. Their defeat would send ripples throughout the cosmos, and humanity would need to be ready for whatever came next. Back on Earth, celebrations continued unabated. In cities around the globe, people danced in the streets, sang songs, and lit fireworks that painted the night sky with vibrant colors. News anchors delivered breathless reports of the battle, replaying footage of the Star Destroyers obliterating the alien ships. Social media buzzed with hashtags like Earthstrong and Nox Humanity wins, as millions shared their pride and relief. Children played games pretending to pilot starships while adults toasted to the bravery of those who had fought for their survival. But not everyone was celebrating. At a military hospital in Washington, D.C., Sarah Mitchell sat by her husband's bedside, holding his hand tightly. Lieutenant James Mitchell had been part of the crew aboard one of the smaller destroyers. During the battle, his ship had taken heavy damage, and he had stayed behind to ensure the rest of the crew escaped safely. Now, he lay unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically in the otherwise silent room. Sarah wiped away tears as she whispered to him, "You saved them, James. You saved us all." In another corner of the world, Maria Chen sat alone in her lab, staring at the data streams from the battle. Though she hadn't been on the front lines, she felt a deep sense of responsibility for what had happened. The AI systems she had helped design had performed flawlessly, anticipating the Zorathians' moves and coordinating the human fleet's attacks with precision. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of what might lie ahead. What if other civilizations decided to invade? What if Earth's technology wasn't enough to stop them? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She turned to see David Thompson standing there, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes bright with determination. "Maria," he said softly, stepping inside. "We did it. We really did it." She nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, we did, but at what cost?" David sighed and pulled up a chair beside her. "I know it's hard to think about right now, but this is just the beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. They'll come, whether to help, to trade, or to conquer. We have to be ready." Maria looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we can handle it? Really handle it?" David placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've got no choice. If we don't stand together, we'll fall apart. And after everything we've been through, I don't think humanity will let that happen." As they spoke, leaders from around the world convened in an emergency session of the United Nations. For decades, nations had argued over borders, resources, and ideologies. But now, faced with a threat that transcended politics, they found themselves united in purpose. Representatives from every country gathered in the General Assembly Hall, their faces solemn yet hopeful. At the center of the room stood Captain Reyes, who had been summoned to address the assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Reyes began, her voice steady and commanding. "Today we proved that humanity is capable of greatness. We showed the universe that when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot overcome. But our fight is far from over." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "The Zorathians were only the first. There are countless civilizations out there, some peaceful, some hostile. Some may seek to harm us, while others may wish to form alliances. Our challenge now is to prepare for both possibilities. We must continue, advancing our technology, strengthening our defenses and fostering cooperation, not just between nations but between worlds. Her speech was met with applause but also murmurs of concern. Many delegates wondered how Earth could possibly keep up with the rapid pace of interstellar diplomacy and warfare. Others worried about the ethical implications of wielding such immense power. Still, Reyes's message resonated deeply. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and there was no turning back. In the days that followed, Earth became a beacon of hope and resilience in the galaxy. News of humanity's victory spread faster than light, carried by automated probes and intercepted signals. Civilizations that had once dismissed Earth as insignificant now regarded it with respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. Ambassadors from distant star systems arrived, eager to learn more about the species that had defeated the mighty Zorathians. Some came bearing gifts, offering trade agreements and technological exchanges. Others sent envoys to negotiate treaties, hoping to avoid conflict with a newly emerged superpower. Among these visitors was a delegation from the Veilari Collective, a peaceful alliance of species known for their advancements in medicine and art. Their ambassador, a tall, slender being with shimmering skin and multiple translucent wings, addressed the United Nations with grace and curiosity. "We have watched your rise with great interest," the ambassador said, its voice melodic and soothing. "Your courage and ingenuity inspire us. Perhaps together we can build a brighter future for all sentient beings." Reyes listened intently, nodding in agreement. "We welcome your friendship," she replied. "But let me make one thing clear. Earth will always defend itself. We seek peace, but we are prepared for war." The ambassador bowed respectfully, acknowledging the warning. "Understood. May our paths lead to mutual prosperity." Not all encounters were so cordial, however. A few weeks later, a fleet belonging to the Krylos Dominion entered Earth's orbit without permission. The Krylos were a warrior race, renowned for their aggressive expansion and disdain for weaker species. Their leader, a hulking figure clad in golden armor, demanded an audience with Earth's leaders. "You have proven yourselves formidable," the Krylos commander growled, his voice booming through the communication channel. "But do not mistake this for acceptance. Your actions against the Zorathians disturb the balance of power in this region. If you wish to coexist peacefully, you will submit to our authority." Reyes narrowed her eyes, her tone icy. "Earth bows to no one. We fought for our freedom and we will protect it at any cost. Leave our system or face the consequences." For a tense moment it seemed like the Krylos might attack, but then, after a long pause, their commander chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that echoed menacingly. "Very well. For now we withdraw. But know this. We will be watching." With that, the Krylos fleet turned and departed, leaving Earth's defenders on edge. Reyes knew they had avoided a potential disaster, but she also understood that the Krylos wouldn't forget this encounter. They would return stronger and more determined. Despite these challenges, humanity pressed forward. Scientists worked tirelessly to improve Earth's defenses, developing new weapons and upgrading existing ones. Engineers constructed orbital stations equipped with advanced sensors and weaponry, ensuring that no enemy could sneak past undetected. Politicians drafted laws to regulate contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, balancing openness with caution. Meanwhile, ordinary people adapted to their new reality. Schools began teaching courses on xenobiology and interstellar relations, preparing the next generation for a life among the stars. Artists created works inspired by the battle, capturing the bravery and unity of humanity in paintings, sculptures, and music. Even children dreamed differently now, imagining themselves as pilots, scientists, or diplomats working to secure Earth's place in the galaxy. Captain Reyes often found herself reflecting on how much had changed in such a short time. Once humanity had been isolated, unaware of the vastness beyond its atmosphere. Now it stood shoulder to shoulder with ancient civilizations, forging alliances and facing threats that stretched across light years. It was daunting, yes, but also exhilarating. One evening, as she walked along the observation deck of her ship, Reyes stopped to gaze at the stars. Each pinprick of light represented a world, a civilization, a story waiting to unfold. She thought about the battles fought, the lives lost, and the future yet to be written. Then, with a small smile, she whispered to herself, "When Earth's sky parts, it reveals not weakness, but unstoppable strength." And somewhere deep in space, whispers of humanity's triumph echoed through the void, carrying a message clear and undeniable. Never underestimate the resolve of humankind. Months had passed since humanity's victory over the Zorathian Empire. The scars of battle were slowly healing, both on Earth and in space. Cities that had once trembled under the shadow of alien invasion now thrived with renewed energy. Streets buzzed with conversations about the future, schools taught lessons about interstellar diplomacy, and scientists worked tirelessly to push the boundaries of technology even further. Humanity was no longer just a species confined to one planet. It was a rising power in the galaxy, but peace came with challenges. Earth's newfound prominence attracted attention from all corners of the universe. Some visitors came in peace, eager to learn from humanity's ingenuity and resilience. Others arrived with less noble intentions, testing Earth's resolve and probing for weaknesses. Captain Elena Reyes and her team found themselves at the center of this delicate balancing act, navigating alliances, rivalries, and threats as humanity took its first steps into the wider cosmos. One evening, Reyes stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring out at the stars through the massive view screen. Her mind wandered back to the day when Earth's sky had parted to reveal its hidden strength. That moment had changed everything, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy itself. Now, she often wondered if they were truly ready for what lay ahead. The Zorathians had been defeated, but they were only one piece of a much larger puzzle. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of dangers far greater than anyone on Earth could imagine. Her thoughts were interrupted by Lieutenant Carter, who approached her with an urgent expression. "Captain," he said, handing her a tablet, "we've received a transmission from the Velari Collective." Reyes took the device and glanced at the screen. The message was brief but significant. The Velari wanted to invite Earth to join their alliance, a coalition of civilizations dedicated to promoting peace and cooperation across the galaxy. It was an honor, but also a responsibility. Accepting meant committing Earth to uphold the principles of the alliance, including defending weaker species from aggression and sharing resources equitably. "What do you think?" Carter asked cautiously. "It's a big decision." Reyes nodded, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula visible through the view screen. "It is," she admitted, "but I believe we're ready. We've proven we can protect ourselves and others. Joining the Velari could be our chance to make a real difference." With that, Reyes drafted a response accepting the invitation. Within days, Earth officially became a member of the Velari Collective. News of the alliance spread quickly, inspiring hope among many species who had long suffered under the tyranny of empires like the Zorathians and the Krylos Dominion. For the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for justice, equality, and unity. However, not everyone welcomed Earth's rise. The Krylos Dominion, still smarting from their earlier encounter, grew increasingly hostile. Their spies monitored Earth's activities closely, gathering intelligence on the Star Destroyers and other advanced technologies. Meanwhile, their leaders plotted revenge, determined to reclaim their dominance in the region. One night, while patrolling near the edge of Earth's solar system, a human scout ship detected unusual activity. A fleet of unidentified vessels had entered the sector, moving stealthily toward Earth's outer defenses. Alarms sounded instantly, alerting Reyes and her crew to the potential threat. "Identify those ships," Reyes ordered sharply, her voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "It's the Krylos," Carter reported grimly. "They're armed to the teeth, and they're heading straight for us." Reyes clenched her fist tightly, her jaw set with determination. She had known this day might come, but she hadn't expected it so soon. Still, there was no time for fear or hesitation. Earth's fate depended on her next move. "All ships prepare for battle," she commanded. Activate defensive grids and deploy interceptor drones. We won't let them get past us. The human fleet sprang into action, positioning itself between the Krylos Armada and Earth. The Star Destroyers glowed ominously as their weapons charged, ready to unleash devastation upon the invaders. On board each vessel, crews worked with precision and focus, knowing that failure was not an option. Back on Earth, people watched anxiously as news networks broadcast live updates of the unfolding standoff. Prayers filled churches, mosques, and temples, while children clung to their parents, hoping for another miracle. The Krylos opened fire first, launching waves of missiles and plasma bolts at the human fleet. But Earth's defenders were prepared. Their AI systems anticipated every attack, redirecting shields and counterattacking with devastating accuracy. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the two sides clashed, neither willing to yield. Despite their numbers, the Krylos struggled to gain ground. Humanity's Star Destroyers moved with unmatched agility, dodging enemy fire while delivering crippling blows. Drones swarmed around the alien ships, targeting weak points and disabling key systems. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle began to turn. On board the lead destroyer, Reyes issued new orders. Focus all firepower on their command ship. If we take out their leader, the rest will fall apart. Her crew complied immediately, concentrating their attacks on the massive golden vessel at the heart of the Krylos fleet. Beams of energy tore through its hull, causing explosions that rocked the entire formation. Finally, with a deafening roar, the command ship erupted in flames, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The remaining Krylos ships faltered, breaking formation as panic spread through their ranks. "Cease fire," Reyes ordered, raising her hand to signal a halt. "Let them retreat." The surviving Krylos vessels turned and fled, disappearing into the void. Cheers erupted on the bridges of the human destroyers as the crew celebrated their second victory. But Reyes remained calm, her expression thoughtful rather than triumphant. She knew this wouldn't be the last time Earth faced such a threat. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be those who sought to dominate or destroy. Back on Earth, celebrations broke out once again. Fireworks lit up the skies, and crowds gathered in public squares to sing songs of triumph. Yet amid the joy, there was also reflection. People realized that humanity's journey was just beginning, that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and sacrifices. But they also understood that together, they could overcome anything. In the weeks that followed, Earth continued to strengthen its position in the galaxy. New treaties were signed, trade routes established, and cultural exchanges initiated. Scientists collaborated with alien experts to develop technologies that benefited both humans and other species. Artists shared their work with extraterrestrial audiences, creating bonds that transcended language and biology. Reyes addressed the United Nations one final time, her voice filled with pride and resolve. "Today, we stand united, not just as nations, but as a single species reaching for the stars. Our victory over the Zorathians and the Krylos proves that we are capable of greatness. But let us never forget why we fight. We fight not for conquest, but for peace. Not for power, but for justice. And not for ourselves alone, but for all sentient beings." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring millions to continue striving for a better future. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, earning respect and admiration from civilizations across the galaxy. No longer were they seen as primitives or weaklings. They were warriors, diplomats, and dreamers, all rolled into one. And so, as Earth's Star Destroyers patrolled the heavens and ambassadors forged alliances with distant worlds, humanity looked to the future with hope and determination. They knew the journey wouldn't always be easy, but they also knew they had the strength to face whatever came next. Because when Earth's sky parts, it reveals not weakness, but unstoppable strength. And somewhere deep in space, whispers of humanity's triumph echoed through the void, carrying a message clear and undeniable. Never underestimate the resolve of humankind.